Your body jumps before your eyes even see the scare. Let me show you why. You know the moment. The music has gone quiet. The character is walking down a hallway that is too long. You are leaning forward, and then something slams into the frame, and you are already halfway out of your seat. Here is the strange part. You did not decide to jump. You did not even see the thing yet, not properly. Your arms were already up. That is not a figure of speech. Your body genuinely moved before the part of your brain that recognizes phases and shapes had finished its work. The effect arrived before the cause was understood. Today I want to show you exactly how that is possible. Because once you see the mechanism, you cannot unsee it. And by the end of this video, you will know why the same scare never works twice on you, and why the best horror directors know the scare itself is the least important part. Let us start with what actually happens in your body. A jump scare does not begin with fear. It begins with a reflex. Scientists call it the startle reflex. And it is one of the oldest pieces of equipment you own. Almost every mammal has it. It is older than language, older than reasoning, older than you. And it runs on a schedule you cannot interrupt. When a loud sound hits you, the signal goes from your ear to your brainstem and straight out to your muscles. That is it. Just a handful of connections. No thinking, no weighing up, no checking whether the sound is a monster or a door slamming. In laboratory recordings, the muscles start firing within milliseconds. Your eyes are already closing before you know why. Then the rest of the pattern rolls down your body, and it always goes in the same order. Eyes shut, jaw clenches, shoulders pull up towards your ears, stomach tightens, knees bend. Look at that shape for a second. Eyes protected, neck covered, middle of the body curled in. Center of gravity dropped. That is not panic, that is armor. Your body is doing the single most useful thing it can do in the quarter second before it knows what is happening. It is protecting the fragile parts and getting low, and that entire sequence finishes in under a second. Now here is the question that actually matters. If your muscles are already moving, where is the fear? Because the fear feels like it comes first. It never does. This is the part most people get backwards. Your brain does not run one path from your senses to your reactions. It runs two, and they leave at the same time and arrive at very different speeds. The first path is the rough one. Signal comes in, drops into a relay station deep in the middle of your brain, and goes almost immediately to a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. The amygdala is your threat detector. It does not deal in detail. It deals in speed. Its entire job is to answer one question. Could this hurt me? And to answer it before it has enough information to be sure. The second path is the careful one. Same signal, but it takes a detour up through your cortex, the thinking, seeing, recognizing part of your brain. That path works out what the thing actually is. A face, a door, a cat, your flatmate. The careful path is better. It is also slower. Every extra step costs time, and the rough path has far fewer steps to make. It gets there first, and not by a little. So, think about what that means in a cinema. The loud noise hits, the rough path fires, your amygdala says, something is wrong. Your body throws its arms up and shuts its eyes. And a beat later, a real measurable beat later, the careful path finally delivers its verdict. It is a cat. It was always a cat. That is why you jump before you see it. You did not react to the monster. You reacted to the possibility of a monster, because your brain decided that being wrong and embarrassed is much cheaper than being right and dead. Your body is not being cowardly. It is being early on purpose. And there is one more twist worth knowing. The scientist whose work made this idea famous, Joseph Ledoux, has spent years pushing back on how people describe it. That fast circuit does not create the feeling of fear. It creates the reaction, the feeling, the racing heart, the laugh, the oh my god. That is what your conscious mind builds a moment later when it catches up and finds your body already braced. So, the truth is slightly stranger than you thought. You do not jump because you are scared. A lot of the time, you feel scared because you jumped. Now, let me show you why the sound is doing almost all the work. Directors know something that sounds like a joke. Take a famous jump scare and watch it on mute. It barely lands at all. Because your startle reflex is tuned far more sharply to sudden loud sound than to sudden movement on a screen, Sound reaches your brainstem on a very short, very fast route. That is why horror sound design is full of things that are not really music at all. Sharp string stabs, a blast of distortion, a shriek with no obvious source. It is engineered to be sudden, loud, and impossible to predict. Which brings us to the thing that separates a cheap scare from a scare people remember for 20 years. The buildup. You would assume the scare does the damage. It does not. The dread does. Researchers have compared this to what happens in gambling studies, and the finding is uncomfortable. What lights people up most is not the reward. It is the anticipation of a reward that might not arrive. A cue that pays off every single time gets boring fast. A cue that pays off about half the time is the one that keeps people locked in. Horror runs on exactly the maths. The long hallway, the slow push towards the door, the music that swells and then just stops and nothing happens. That empty moment is not a failure. It is the director training you. Now you cannot trust the buildup anymore. And the next time the music swells, you are wound tighter than you were the first time, because you no longer know if this one is real. The scares you remember are the ones you spent 2 minutes dreading, which explains the last piece. Why does the same jump scare stop working? Because your startle reflex learns. Show your brain the same sudden sound over and over with nothing bad attached, and the response gets smaller every time. Your nervous system is not stupid. It updates. That is why a rewatch feels flat, and why a horror film that leans on one trick runs out of power halfway through. But it works the other way too. If you are already anxious, already tense, already braced, the same sound produces a bigger jump. Your threshold drops. You are easier to startle when you are already on edge. Which is why watching horror alone at 2 a.m. is a completely different experience from watching it with friends at 8 p.m. Same film, different nervous system. So, to bring it all together, you jump because a reflex older than your species runs a protective sequence before your conscious mind is invited. The rough, fast path in your brain reaches your muscles before the careful, slow path can tell you it was only a cat. The sound is doing most of the work, not the image. The dread matters more than the scare, and your body quietly updates its settings every single time. None of that is a weakness. Every person who ever survived long enough to have children had a nervous system that moved before it understood. You are the descendant of the ones who flinched. Here is what I want to know. What is the one jump scare that still gets you even now, even when you know it is coming? Tell me the film and the moment. I read every comment.